Today's devotion is titled A Wise Man with Futile Actions. And yes, that was a question. We are on February 25th, and we are on day 56 of reading the Bible through alphabetically in a year, and we are starting a new book today. We're starting Ecclesiastes. Now, for the rest of the month of February, we'll be in Ecclesiastes, and the daily morning rinses are going to actually be a little shorter than what you're used to throughout the book of Deuteronomy. So it might be a little bit of a refresher. I don't know. But go ahead and stop this, read Ecclesiastes 1 and 2, and come on back and let's dive right in. So the featured verse is Ecclesiastes 2:11. Thus I considered all my activities which my hands had done, and the labor which I had exerted, and behold, all was vanity, and striving after wind, and there was no profit under the sun. So it's interesting, Solomon became the wisest man in the world during this time. Many, many kings and leaders even came to study underneath of him. And I think that the natural default perception of Solomon is that he did everything with a godly, eternal purpose. I know that I thought that originally, and it makes perfect sense to believe that, since he had asked God for wisdom instead of riches, and then he ended up with wealth known across the land and a kingdom worth traveling miles and miles and miles to see with one's own eyes. I mean, I have to admit that when I see someone with godly wisdom, whether it's from the Bible or it's in modern times, it's easy for me to view them as someone who makes all of their choices with an eternal purpose. I mean, you would think that, right? Because wisdom is knowing what we're supposed to do and actually implementing what we're supposed to do. That's wisdom. Wisdom isn't just knowing what we're supposed to do. It's actually acting upon our knowledge and what we know from God. But Solomon actually squelched my perception. By the time that he wrote Ecclesiastes, he was reflecting on his whole life, and he realized that everything apart from God means nothing, including all of his quote-unquote wise actions. This book is Solomon's last written message, and you'll notice when you're reading the book of Ecclesiastes that it's actually written with this negative tone, because he's recapping his life's choices and realizing that he made a lot of mistakes. They didn't actually fully embrace his own wisdom and take that on for his own life in some circumstances. And it's interesting that instead of writing about all of his blessings at the end of his life and being joyful at all that he had accomplished and obtained, he sadly admits that some of his actions were full of vanity and they gained nothing for God's kingdom. I mean, it is kind of a sad note, a negative note when you're reading the book of Ecclesiastes. And so you'll see those negative tones in especially this early part. Really, he strongly wrote for us to stay focused on what God wants us to do in our lives, not what our flesh wants. And he wasn't trying to squelch our hope for blessings and our hope for increase, but literally, he was begging us to focus our hope on the one who will give our life true meaning, to focus on God. He was also not against having wisdom, and he wasn't against having knowledge. He wasn't against even having riches and pleasurable things. He wasn't against any of that, but he stressed the importance of seeking them in their proper place for our lives. And after spending a lifetime making choices and decisions with the wisdom that God gave him, he ended up giving a message that was for everyone to realize that every action needs to be done with an eternal purpose. And he admitted that not every action that he had was done with eternal purpose. So it's kind of a sad note, a sad kind of book, a sad tone, I guess, but a very powerful one. And the book of Ecclesiastes doesn't end negatively, but, we're going to have to work through some of the things that he wrote about. So today's challenge to dig deeper, even in the midst of reading Ecclesiastes and hearing some of the things that Solomon wrote about. This isn't a very long read today at all, but today's challenge to dig deeper is knowing that wisdom and actions are futile without eternal purpose. So your challenge today is to ask God to show you where you need to use your wisdom for eternal purposes. And what I mean by that is that we are all wise in some area, shape, or form. I mean, we may have extreme amounts of business wisdom or extreme amounts of relationship wisdom. God's given us wisdom that we can use and implement. And sometimes, unfortunately, we use that wisdom not for kingdom purposes. And so today's challenge is say, hey, God, is there any actions that I am displaying that I am not fully using the wisdom for eternal purposes? Maybe you're a business person and you've made some decisions that are more so self-directed versus eternal purposes. Maybe just seek God and really make sure that you are fine-tuning. Today's kind of a fine-tuning day. Just seek God and ask him, like, what are some decisions? Am I making all the decisions for eternal purposes? And if you need to, then make a different decision today if he asks you to. Your challenge today is just to fine-tune some things and ask God to show you where any of those decisions are or actions that you use your wisdom for, your knowledge, and you put it in action. Ask him to fine-tune it and make sure that every wise decision that you make is for eternal purposes. And then adjust those and fine-tune yourself today and keep moving and keep progressing, because these are messages from the wisest man ever in the Bible. And he's saying that he's reflecting on his life and realizing that even though he had wisdom, he didn't implement like he should have. And tonight, when you pull out your journal and you reflect on the things that God showed you today, ask God, write down what God talked to you about today. Was there any area in your life that you just kind of needed to fine tune it? Can you use your knowledge differently in the future with a eternal purpose that's even stronger than how you use it right now? I hope today's devotion and episode really encouraged you to just continually fine-tune your life, continually get stronger in your faith, continually get stronger in your decisions, continually get stronger in your walk with God, so that every single thing that you do has an eternal purpose, because we need to be kingdom-minded every single day, don't we? And of course, if you don't have my devotional, the directions are in my show notes, the link to get that. Also, too, if you have gotten a book, I would really, really appreciate it if you would go to Amazon and give me a review. It is going to help boost this book. My goal has been to get 50 reviews, and I'm not quite there yet. So if you could help out with that, that would be amazing. And if you know of anybody that has actually gotten my book and hasn't given a review, that would totally help me out a lot. And also, too, we have a Facebook group. It's called Rinse, Reflect, Repeat Devotional. And come on in there. I would love to hear your insights and your own golden nuggets of things that you have gleaned from this podcast. And I look forward to continually growing the community and continually reaching people who need to hear hope and inspiration, as well as learning about the gospel. And until tomorrow, keep rinsing, reflecting, and repeating. God bless.